Laçodive pa kvaledikavne emisjako Jivdipe Tumenca. Araklovanje kjaviruni emisija peromanići Jivdipe Tumenca, kovakava veru lavgjam kaj te treterina jek tema koja si to panli vaš opiko doipe lumjake organizacije kaj den vaš o harucino komunitetja ani Kosova. Bišerdina o treteripe temako vaš emisija Jivdipe Tumenca, ulavgjao informi Tumenca pa kvaledikavne kaj avdive emisija Jivdipe Tumenca pergja dui bërša kotaro angluno transmitipe ano frekvencije vaj ano kanalja e televizijako syri. Vašoleske mangava jek barona isipe saj Tumenge pa kvaledikavne kaj diken taj kritikinen vaj komentinen amari emisija Jivdipe Tumenca. Jek najsipe ini vaš o donatorje kola dengje piko doipe kaj akana dui bërša i emisja Jivdipe Tumenca te transmitingjol ano ekranja e televizijako syri. Panlo akava ceremonia vaj akava dui bërša Jivdipe Tumenca, amen avdivje si amen jek specialuni intervista kaj kergjam e ambasadoresa kotari misija OSBE ani Kosova, orajo Michael Davenport, kolencava kergjam vaš i pozicija e harucine komunitetjenge ani Kosova, o implementipe vaj na implementipe e ververutne krisjenge kaj si kreirime kotaro kosovake institucije vaš akala komunitetja, numaj ini i nevi strategija vaš o integripe e harucine komunitetjenge rom tajaška linja ano kosovako amalipe. Vaš majbuderi panlja kaja intervista ponakipe te dikaj gatisarni intervista erajo sa Davenport ta era namen palem ano agor emisjako Jivdipe Tumenca.
Mr. Ambassador, thanks for your time that you have given for our emission to discuss about the situation of the Roma Ashkelin Egyptian communities here in Kosovo, and this is a big honor for us to get this interview with you and your support and your work that you're doing here in Kosovo. To begin our discussion, how you see the situation of the Roma Ashkelin Egyptian community in Kosovo? Do you see stories of the successes, or it's also normally that it's also bad situation that this community lives? In your side of the OSCE mission here in Kosovo, how you see this position of this community by here in Kosovo?
Well, first of all, thank you very much for inviting me to this interview. It's a great pleasure and an honour to be speaking to you and through you to your viewers and listeners. So thank you very much. I think that the last few years have seen some improvements in some areas for non-majority communities in Kosovo, including Roma Ashkali and Egyptian communities. But definitely there are serious remaining challenges, especially I think for the Roma Ashkali Egyptian communities when it comes to discrimination, when it comes to access to education and rights to education, access to health care, for example. Employment definitely is really difficult. Employment in the public sector, we need to see more done to encourage employment of members of the Roma Ashkali and Egyptian communities in public sector. So I think there's been a lot of good work done, but there's a lot more to do. And as you know, the mission of the OSCE mission in Kosovo is very committed to supporting efforts in this regard. We've been very pleased to support the language rights as well, and in particular the radio and TV, because the richness of the culture, the heritage of the Roma Ashkali Egyptian communities in Kosovo is something very, very proud of. And we're delighted to be involved and engaged in that. So we have programs as the OSCE mission in Kosovo which cover the areas that I just mentioned. Plus we also have programs on support for returnees. I think the position of those returning, having been displaced to Kosovo, especially women from non-majority communities, face a difficult situation and need special support. And we have programs that are designed to galvanize that kind of support. So working with women, working with young people, trying to secure a better future for young people from these communities in Kosovo. This is really a very high priority for the OSCE.
You have mentioned some stories of the discrimination that was present here in Kosovo, unfortunately, and we have seen that the OSCE mission here in Kosovo have reacted about these stories. How you see the implementation of the law, in this case, the law of anti-discrimination that is part of the institutions? Do you see that it's better now, and we have saw that it's some mechanism that is established from the side of the Prime Minister office here in Kosovo to support and to report the discrimination of these communities by the institutions?
Well, unfortunately, discrimination, as I mentioned earlier, is a problem, and it's not only in Kosovo that it's a problem, and of course it's not only the Roma and Ashkali and Egyptian communities that are subject to such discrimination. If we look across the region and indeed across the continent, unfortunately we see a lot of these issues. The OSCE and the participating states of the OSCE have long since recognised this as a major challenge, and indeed we saw the establishment many years ago in 1994 of a contact point at the OSCE Office for Democracy and Human Rights in Warsaw for Roma and Sinti, which was an important step and sent a message. But there is so much more to do, and that's why I'm pleased that today we are together launching the new strategy on the advancement specifically of the rights of Roma and Ashkali communities. There are, unfortunately, I think, too many examples of seeing the way discrimination affects people and people's lives, people's careers, people's development of potential. But there's a lot going on to try to counter that, and the OSCE mission is engaged in internship programs for young members of these communities, to give people opportunities, to give young people opportunities to show their potential, to get work experience. As we were hearing from the report from Radio Free Europe over the weekend, how can you get a job where you require work experience if nobody will give you the work experience? So giving people that opportunity to have work experience is really, really important. And I think also there needs to be continuing active support for members of these communities, especially young members of these communities, to be better prepared for making applications for positions in the public sector employment. To give you an example, recently I attended an event at the Kosovo Public Safety Academy, which is supported by the Kosovo Police and the Academy itself, where we invited members of the Roma Ashkali Egyptian communities to come to hear from police officers, including police officers from those communities, about the police, about what it takes to become a police officer, what it takes to be a police officer, and to kind of open the door to new possibilities for young people. So it will take time for that to prosper, but I really wish that it does. And maybe it's important to highlight that this strategy, which is being launched today, contains a new element, which is a particular pillar focused on the issue of discrimination itself.
Mr. Ambassador, you have mentioned that it's a big work that the Kosovo institutions are doing about the support, to give support to the Roma, Ashkali and Egyptian communities, and you mentioned about the rights of educated. Maybe one of the problems for the moment that it's by the institution of the education is that the Roma, Ashkali and Egyptian community are not part of the school books. How you comment this? How is important that the Ministry of Education or the Kosovo institutions to see and to put also information about these three communities in the part of the school books, and the children to have the rights to know also for others, not just for Albanians?
Yes, absolutely. Well, I think you mentioned education, and education is one of the top priorities identified, I'm pleased to say, in the strategy. And if you ask me, if there's anything that should be focused on first, it is about education. Yes, the point you make, acknowledging and making everybody aware of the of Roma, Ashkali and Egyptian participation in Kosovo, in being part of Kosovo, bringing their own cultural legacy, language, literature, traditions, and the contribution that these communities can make in every field of life, in every walk of life. But I also think that the fundamental point about access to education and taking steps to try to prevent dropouts from full-time education, and to provide that extra support that children need when the environment in which they are being brought up is not necessarily conducive to seizing the educational opportunities that are out there. And in that context, I have been very impressed since I've been in Kosovo over the last 18 months by the really, really important work being done in the learning centres, which offer that safe environment for kids to focus on their studies, focus on their homework, to get support, academic support, to get moral support. And also, I've been so impressed by the way in which graduates of those learning centres who've used that themselves to go on sometimes to higher education have been ready and are ready to plough back their experience and put their own time and energy into encouraging kids in these learning centres. But they are under threat. Many of them have been closing recently because of lack of funding. The European Union funding ended, and the expectation was that the gap would be filled by government funding. That has happened. I'm very grateful to the Ministry for the support that they've provided over the last year and a half. But it's not enough, because we're still seeing these learning centres closing. And this is really tragic when such important institutions are performing such a very important role. And of course there are very dedicated non-governmental organisations, civil society, actually implementing the projects in these learning centres. But they need the funding, they need the support.
You have mentioned about the new strategy that now it's approved by the government of Kosovo, and now it's promoted today in these conferences. How you see this new strategy? It's better like the last one that was here in Kosovo, because it was some comments from the civil society that was not a good report. The government didn't have allocate budget to implement this strategy. And will be this new strategy better, or it will be the same, because also OSBE mission have support the process to draft and to design this new strategy?
Yes, well, we've been very involved in supporting the very lengthy process of ensuring that this strategy really enjoys buy-in from Roma and Ashkali communities, that it reflects the real concerns of both communities. It highlights the work that needs to be done and coordinated in the areas of education, healthcare, employment, but also discrimination, as I said before. is a budget allocation, and that is very important. I understand that that's been a real problem in the past. We have to make sure that that actually happens. It's all about implementation. The work only starts now. There's another innovation, which is we were talking about it earlier, the creation of these municipal action committees, which is a new thing. We as the OSCE mission will be facilitating the work that's needed to create these municipal action committees within the framework of the strategy, and to get them started, because fundamental will be the coordination of the work and the cooperation between central institutions and municipal institutions to make this work. It's not just one or another part of the machinery. It's not just the government or the municipality or the NGO sector. It's everybody working together that will make the difference. And one other thing that may be worth mentioning is which sends a good message, I think, is that this strategy is published also in the Romani language.
Yeah, this was something new. This one in this document for this moment, because the last one was not in access in the Roma language, and this is something that is very, very important for us. When we discuss about the Roma language, is one of the sections that you have given support these last 2 years. It's also the media in the Roma languages in local level. It's some municipalities that you give support, link here, also the Jakova municipality with a mission in Roma language, Jivdipe, Tumenca. How you see this support of your side, and why you have supported the emissions in Roma language in the local levels?
Well, I'm very pleased that the OSCE mission has managed to provide some modest support, but important support, I think, for these efforts, because clearly language is part of everybody's identity, and being able to hear your own language being spoken in the media, on the TV and the radio, having that direct contact in your own language to what's going on outside in the world out there, this is hugely confidence building, and I think it's really important. And it is a remarkable achievement that the extent to which the culture and cultural heritage and the language and literature of Roma communities have been preserved in Kosovo, and this needs to be celebrated and supported as well going forward. So I can say that we certainly are proud of being able to help in this way, both in Jakova and Jakova, Jakovica and Gračanica as well, I'm pleased to say, and we will definitely go on supporting these efforts in similar ways in the future.
You have mentioned in your discussion about the empowerment of the women and the youth of Roma Ashkelin Egyptian communities, and that you give support them to be to advance the capacities of them in the part of the internship. Do you see that in the employment is one of another challenge that have this community, because it's also the law that guarantee the employment of them, but unfortunately it's not implemented very well by the Kosovo institutions?
Well, as we know, legislation is one thing, and Kosovo in most of these areas for the protection of human and community rights, Kosovo has satisfactory legislation, but then it is about implementing it, and it's about channels for challenging it, but also about awareness of legislation. It's about creating the culture, if you like, the institutional culture within organisations, within public sector and private sector too, about the importance of meeting the requirements of that legislation, not just because it says it in the legislation, but also because this is good for Kosovo. This is good for it. There is so much that members of these communities can contribute, and we shouldn't be missing out on those opportunities. They should not be missing out on the opportunities, but nor should the employers be missing out on the opportunity to employ a more diverse workforce.
The last one question for you, which will be your message for all our target of the mission that we have with the Roma mission in Jakova municipality?
I would really like to encourage everybody in your municipality to continue the really good work on helping to implement the legislation that we have in Kosovo, and also now to work together on implementing the undertakings of the new strategy. And we look forward to working with you on that in the context of setting up the municipal action committees and really making a difference this time.
In the name of the Mission Jivdipe Tumenca, I'd like to thank you for your time that you were giving us to do this interview, and also for your big support that you give for our communities here in Kosovo to have better situation in different way in the institutions, and also to change the situation of bad conditions that they have here in Kosovo.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the conversation.
Thank you very much.
Pak validikavni alam vjano agor pandarje ke misjako Jivdipe Tumenca pak javipea kaj ulladilen qalarde amenca. Anja kaja emisja Jivdipe Tumenca tretëringja mjek specialuni intervista e ambasadoresa kotari misja OSBE ani Kosova Orajo Michael Davenport kolenca sarka i diklen ini ani gatisarni intervista vakergjam vash i pozicija e harucine komunitetjenge rom ashkalinja ta egipćanja ano kosovake amalipe, numaj ini vash o pigodoipe ka i del o kosovako institucije taj o lumjake organizacije vash o lačaripe akalje pozicijako. Numaj erajosa Davenport vakergjam vio vash o mahatnipe e promovi paske romane čibjako ano medialune institucije ka jek baro pigodoipe vash akava procesi dinja ini emisja OSBE ani Kosova taj o ambasadori Davenport dingja pirolafi kaj ka piravel o pigodoipe vash o medije peromani čib ani Kosova. Ano agor mangavjek baro najsipe ververutne donatorienge kola dingje pigodoipe vash emisja Jivdipe Tumenca vash akala duj bërsha pak javipea kaj i emisja Jivdipe Tumenca mate aqol ano transmitipe ano frekvencije vajano vale e emisjako Jivdipe Tumenca. Gjipa Mario Verno termino, oveni saste, taj arakentumaro sastipe, taj tumare familjako.